Something is happening in the reggae world right now, and the people who've been sleeping on this man are finally waking up.
I almost can say it's like I'm not accepted the way I should be. And I can see that in everywhere I turn. Everywhere I turn.
There it is, 30 years of hits, 30 years of sold out stages. And the man himself is saying out loud, on record, that Jamaica still hasn't given him what he deserves.
My show, you won't cut my time to 35 minutes. But the artist that's coming after me is going to work 2 hours. What sense does that make?
But here's what nobody is connecting, because right after saying all of that, something shifted, something changed, and the revelation that came out of it has the entire reggae community talking, debating, and honestly, rethinking everything they thought they knew about Sanchez.
They're not being dealt with evenly, fairly. There's a lot of singers I can tell about right now. They're great, but that's all I can hear. They're great singers, but you can't see nothing. We need to see some more respect being shown to Jamaican artists.
This isn't just about one man feeling overlooked. This is about a system, a pattern, and a revelation that proves beyond any doubt that Jamaica's greatest lover's rock voice has been hiding something extraordinary right in plain sight. Stay with me, because this story goes deeper than you think. Let's go back to the beginning, because you cannot understand the revelation without understanding the roots. Kingston, Jamaica, November 30th, 1964. A boy named Kevin Anthony Jackson is born into a world of sound, struggle, and spirit. Growing up in Stony Hill and Waterford neighborhoods, where music doesn't just play in the background, it lives in the walls, it breathes in the streets, young Kevin found his calling not in a dance hall, not in a studio, but inside the Rehoboth Apostolic Church in St. Catherine.
The lead singer of the group in the church, and sometimes I lead the choir. Lead the choir.
Picture a boy, 8 or 9 years old, standing at the front of a church choir with a voice so far beyond his years that grown adults didn't know whether to clap or cry. No musical family legacy, no famous uncle who paved the way, just a divine spark that seemed to come from somewhere nobody could quite explain, and it moved people deeply.
Went to church a particular Sunday to hear me sing, and I sent up a little new statement that I would like to dedicate a song to my grandmother. And when I got up and sing, she while singing, she got up and started crying on, held for her, and when I started crying, it was a great experience.
His grandmother, visiting from Canada, broke down in tears hearing him sing. That moment, that single Sunday morning moment, etched his destiny in stone. But not everyone was celebrating. The church community, strict and protective, wasn't thrilled about a gifted boy with wandering musical eyes. You see, the secular world was calling Sanchez. The rhythms of the street, the bass lines bumping from sound systems around Kingston, they were magnetic, irresistible. And whenever he got too close to that world, there were consequences.
I used to get a lot of slaps and a lot of, I would say, downgrading, because like in the church, they would put me on the front bench for everyone to see that, and no one else is on that bench. So that's someone who has done bad.
Publicly shamed, sat at the front of the congregation like a sinner on display, all because he loved music too much, all because his gift refused to stay inside the lines someone else drew for it. And here's the thing, that tension between the sacred and the secular, it never fully went away. In fact, it became the very thing that makes Sanchez unlike any other artist in reggae history. He is simultaneously the most spiritual and the most sensual voice in the genre, gospel on Sunday, lovers rock on Saturday night, and he's never apologized for either. But before the world knew any of that, before the albums, before the awards, before the street named after him, there was a beach football game that changed everything. A group of guys playing football on the sand. One player moving so slick, so smooth, so untouchable that someone in the crowd shouted out a comparison to Mexican football legend Hugo Sanchez. The nickname stuck. Kevin Jackson disappeared. Sanchez was born. And once Sanchez picked up the microphone at the Rambo Mango sound system, there was no putting it down.
It was the greatest thing. I never wanted to put on the mic, and they never wanted for me to go. They just wanted to hear me sing all night, and I was like, wow, is this really happening?
Is this really happening? That's the question a young Sanchez asked himself as crowds refused to let him leave the stage. And that same question, in a very different context, is exactly what the reggae world is asking right now in 2025 and 2026. Because what Sanchez has been building quietly, privately, spiritually is finally cracking open for everyone to see. 1987. Producer Redman hears something in this young man's voice that most people in the industry were too distracted to notice. He pulls Sanchez into the studio, tells him point blank, you can sing for real. And Sanchez, he showed up with Fire Lady.
Said, what, you going to put me in the studio? And him say, yeah man, reach up at the studio by X time, and I did. went there with fire and the song went #1.
A sultry, silky reimagining of a pop record transformed into reggae gold. #1, just like that. First time in the studio, #1. Now, a lot of artists get one hit and coast. Sanchez went the other direction entirely. 1988, Winston Riley produces Loneliness Leave Me Alone, a reworking of a Jermaine Jackson track that doesn't just borrow the melody, it swallows it whole and spits out something entirely new.
Yesterday, lonely won't leave me alone.
Then comes the cover of Tracy Chapman's Baby Can I Hold You, turned into something so emotionally devastating in Sanchez's hands that it stopped sounding like a cover at all. It sounded like a confession. The 1989 Reggae Sunsplash Festival, 6 encores. 6. The crowd refused to let him go. They kept calling him back, kept chanting, kept reaching toward the stage like he was carrying something they needed to survive. That's not a performance, that's a movement. But of course, with that kind of energy comes competition. Sting, 1988. The infamous clash involving Sanchez, Pinchers, and Courtney Melody. The stage was electric with natural rivalry, original artists going head to head with a man who could take any song ever written, wrap his voice around it, and make it his own. The crowd was split. The debate was loud.
I mean, original.
Yeah.
And he's doing the covers.
You're a writer.
And he do it very well.
Yeah.
Very, very. Even better than some of the original. No disrespect to the original.
For sure.
But in Sanchez, I boss.
Yeah.
And so I mean,
Cover king or original force? That debate followed Sanchez through the entire decade, and honestly, it follows him still. But here's what those critics conveniently ignored while they were busy debating the source of his songs. He was quietly stacking one of the most consistent catalogs in reggae history. The 1990s were his throne years, working with King Jam, Bobby Digital, Donovan Germain, dropping Never Diss the Man in 1995, a gospel-tinged plea for respect that hits very differently when you understand the full context of his career. A man who's been underestimated his entire life, singing about demanding respect. That's not just a song, that's a testimony. 1 in a Million, 1996, a lover's rock staple that still plays at weddings, parties, and quiet late-night moments across the Caribbean diaspora to this day. His voice, that tenor silk, smooth as warm rum, steady as a heartbeat, transforms every room it enters into something sacred. And yet, even at his commercial peak, the whispers in the industry grew louder. Cover artist, not original enough, not innovative enough, the kind of quiet dismissal that doesn't make headlines but eats away at a legacy over time.
Do you reply to that?
Just with more cover versions and let them know that, yeah, we can sing cover version, but what can you sing? Can you do better or can you do worse or just average? So I've proved over and over again that I can do it and I can do better than most of them. So call me what you may.
Call me what you may. That line, that confidence wrapped in quiet pain, that's the Sanchez revelation right there in miniature. Because the man has never not once begged for their approval. He's just kept working, kept singing, kept proving. Now here's where the story shifts, because Sanchez was never just a reggae singer. He was always something deeper, something more complicated, something that the industry's neat little boxes couldn't quite contain. His gospel work. Let's talk about it because it's arguably the most underrated chapter of his entire career. Amazing Grace, 1999. He's Got the Power, 2003. Albums that didn't just cross genres, they dissolved the boundary between them entirely. When Sanchez sang gospel, he didn't soften his delivery or clean up his style to make church folks comfortable. He brought the full weight of everything he'd experienced, the dance halls, the rivalries, the cover debates, the street corner cheers, and laid it all at the altar.
Amazing Grace.
That's not performance. That's a man wrestling with his own testimony in real time. And then 2022, he breathes new life into Goodness of God, a Bethel music composition, and proves that 4 decades in, the consecrated power in his voice hasn't dimmed by a single watt. If anything, it's stronger because it's been through more. Behind all of it, quietly and consistently, stood Monica Jackson, wife, manager, backbone, the woman Sanchez married in September 1990 and has credited publicly, repeatedly, without hesitation for everything he's built. And when Jamaica finally gave him the Music Icon Award in 2022, after 30 plus years of being passed over for lesser acknowledgments, his response was immediate and instinctive. That's a man who knows exactly where strength comes from. And that humility, that groundedness, is precisely what makes the revelation we're about to get to so much more powerful. Because in 2022, the same year he received that Icon Award, the same year he was being celebrated and honored, life hit Sanchez with a weight that would have broken most people entirely. April 19th, 2022, his mother, Bridget Ivy, the same woman who raised him in the church, who gave him stern words about staying holy, who watched her son become one of the most beloved voices in reggae history, passed away in Canada after battling cervical cancer. Let that land for a second. Then, 11 days later, 11 days, on April 30th, 2022, his 21-year-old son, Kevin Jackson, known as Kids Friday, was shot and killed in Bedward Gardens, Augusttown, one of 3 victims in a completely senseless, brutal attack. Mother, son, 11 days apart. There is no script for that kind of grief. There is no roadmap. There is no gospel album that prepares you for losing your mother and your child in the same breath of time. And yet Sanchez didn't disappear. He didn't crumble publicly. He leaned into his faith with a ferocity that even surprised people who'd known him for years. And then, as if the universe wasn't done testing him, his Instagram account was hacked. His digital home, his connection to his fans, compromised. Fraudulent posts flying, his community confused and vulnerable.
It's been a while. We know we've been hacked. All kind of things been happening. Pandemic, everything's like, but we're here and we're back again. We've got this new page called Iconic Sanchez, and that's what we're working with right now. Anything else is bogus unless I endorse it. But you don't know it, go. Nice to be back with my fans again and to be doing my work again like I should. Yeah, I'm happy and I'm ready to go.
I'm happy and I'm ready to go. After all of that, after losing his mother, after losing his son, after being digitally violated, the man came back to his fans and said, I'm happy, I'm ready to go. That's not a PR statement, that's faith in action. Now we get to the part that has the reggae world fully divided right now. Because as much as we've talked about faith, family, and discography, the revelation that has everyone talking isn't just about music. It's about recognition. It's about the machinery of the music industry and how it decides, sometimes arbitrarily, sometimes deliberately, who gets elevated and who gets managed down. Sanchez has spent 3 decades elevating Jamaica on stages across the world. Tours in Europe, North America, Japan, across the Caribbean. Every set, every performance, every interview a masterclass, and representing the culture with dignity and power. And what did he get in return?
Not being dealt with evenly, fairly. There's a lot of singers I can tell about right now. They're great, but that's all I can hear. They're great singers, but you can't see nothing. We need to see some more respect being shown to Jamaican artists.
He's not talking about himself in isolation here. He's pulling back the curtain on a pattern, a systemic problem, in how Jamaican artists, particularly in the lovers rock and gospel reggae space, get treated by the infrastructure that's supposed to support them. Think about the economics of it. Simply Being Me, hitting number 14 on Billboard's top reggae albums in 2000, Stays on My Mind, reaching number 9 in 2002. He's charting, he's touring, he's selling, and still sets getting cut short. Peers getting 2-hour slots while he's handed 35 minutes.
I'm doing my show. You won't cut my time to 35 minutes. But the artist that's coming after me is going to work 2 hours. What sense does that make?
What sense does that make? Honestly, what sense does it make? And when the streets of Kingston, not the government, not an awards committee, but the actual people, his community renamed a road in Red Hills after him in October 2018. That grassroots honor said everything that the industry had been refusing to say officially for decades.
Oh man, that's another milestone. That's another star in my crown that I really respect so much. As I said before, we're not being fairly dealt with because I think these things should be on the forefront. We're Jamaicans, we're Jamaican artists, we uphold Jamaica 100%.
The people knew. The people always knew. It was the industry that took 30 years to catch up. And here's the part that nobody is really saying out loud, but needs to be said. The cover artist label that followed Sanchez through the 90s and into the 2000s was weaponized. It was used as a tool to minimize him, to make the case that his talent was derivative rather than transformative. But transformation is its own original art form, taking a piece of music that exists in one emotional dimension and pulling it into an entirely new one that requires genius, that requires a voice with the range and the emotional intelligence to serve the song rather than just perform it. And Sanchez's covers consistently outsold, outcharted, and outlasted the criticism aimed at them. So the revelation isn't that he was mistreated, we've known that. The revelation is that in 2025 and 2026, the conversation has finally shifted. The evidence has finally accumulated to a point where even the skeptics are struggling to dismiss it. And Sanchez himself seems more willing than ever to speak it plainly, publicly, and without the diplomatic softening he used to apply. The man is calling it out, and the people are listening. April 2025. After 14 years of silence on the album front, Sanchez drops Jamon. Let that sink in. 14 years. In an industry that chews through artists in 18-month cycles, Sanchez stepped back from full album releases for over a decade, producing, mentoring, maintaining, and then returned not with something nostalgic or comfortable, but with something bold. 10 tracks, produced by Kenneth Thompson for Kerr Music. Let Me Be Me, in particular, feels like the thesis statement of Sanchez's entire career condensed into a single title. After everything the church slaps, the cover debates, the industry snubs, the truncated sets, the double tragedy, the hack after all of it, the man is standing here in 2026 saying, "Let me be me."
I almost can say it's like I'm not accepted the way I should be. And I can see that in everywhere I turn.
But what makes the Jamon era different from everything that came before it isn't just the music. It's the context surrounding it. It's the fact that Sanchez is now operating with a freedom that comes from having survived things most artists never face. He buried his mother, his San Monic label continues to develop artists, his production work continues to shape reggae's sonic landscape, and streaming numbers Missing You Alone, pulling tens of thousands of weekly plays, prove that the catalog isn't just alive. It's actively being discovered by new ears every single day. New listeners in 2025 and 2026 are finding Sanchez for the first time and having exactly the same reaction his crowds had in 1989. They don't want it to stop. They want more. A man with a 5-decade career, Billboard chart placements, a street named after him by his own community, a Music Icon Award, a net worth built entirely through talent and tenacity, and he still had to fight for a 35-minute set slot. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about how the industry operates, nothing will. So what is the revelation that has everyone talking? It's this: Sanchez never stopped, and he's just getting started. That sounds simple, but think about everything that phrase contains. The church boy who got slapped for loving music too much. The sound system selector who turned beer-soaked crowds into choirs, the cover artist who outsang every original, the gospel voice who held the sacred and the secular in the same hands, the husband who gave his wife full credit for his Icon Award, the father who buried his son and came back singing, the man who rebuilt his digital presence after it was stolen and said, "I'm happy and I'm ready to go." Not a regular artist's journey. That is something else entirely.
Sing over is what made I and make me up until this day, so I'm proud.
Proud, after everything, still proud. And the fans, the ones who've been in his corner for 30 years, and the new ones discovering him right now on streaming platforms, they're having a collective moment of recognition. They're looking at this man, this catalog, this life, and saying, why didn't we talk about this more? Why wasn't this louder?
Sanchez, I can't believe you're so you still sing so wicked. You're still so splendid. Yeah.
Still wicked, still splendid. At 60 plus years old, with everything he's carried, the voice is still there. The spirit is still there. The fire is still there. And Jamon isn't just an album, it's a statement. A declaration that Sanchez's story isn't in its final chapter. It might just be entering its most important one, because now he's speaking with the authority of someone who has nothing left to prove and everything left to say. The reggae world is talking. Social media is sharing. Streaming numbers are climbing. And a new generation of listeners is asking the same question that's been waiting for a proper answer for 3 decades. Why didn't we know about this man sooner? Best kept secret. Not anymore. Because the revelation isn't a scandal. It isn't a beef. It isn't a controversy in the traditional sense. The revelation is simpler and more powerful than any of that. This is a story about being undeniable. And if you've been sleeping on Sanchez, now is the time to wake up. Drop in the comments. When did you first hear Sanchez? Was it Baby? Can I Hold You? 1 in a Million? Missing You? Let us know. And if this video opened your eyes to someone you needed to know about, share it. Because that's how legends finally get their flowers.